Okay, so a good evening and a warm welcome to all our viewers. My name is Latoya Joel, and I'm the host of Broken But Healed TV. Today, we have a very special guest that has joined us to share her testimony about God's goodness. And I continue to encourage you and to implore you to please continue to view our testimonies and our different teachings. And also, please, if you could like and subscribe, that would be great. So, at this moment, I'm going to welcome you, Mel, to our podcast. Can you maybe start off by telling us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and where you grew up? And yeah.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to be your guest speaker.
Oh, you're
It's
very
really,
welcome.
really a pleasure for me. Well, my name is Melita, but everybody knows me as Mel.
Mel,
I
okay.
am from Croatia. Um,
Melita, you're very welcome to Broken But Healed TV. We are so excited. I think each time we hear the different countries, the last time we had someone from Nigeria and we also had a lady from Brazil. So we're excited that God is working in different nations. I think it's so special. Okay,
mm,
Melita, please continue to maybe tell us what you do and just as in serving God. What does Melita
well,
do?
at the moment, I'm working as a healthcare assistant in a nursing home,
Okay.
and
Oh, that's a
uh,
very rewarding job, Melita.
it is. I've been there. It's actually this week was 3 years since I'm working there as a healthcare assistant in my nursing home, and it's been really a pleasure. And when I was when I was a child, I always wanted to work somewhere in the healthcare. I
Wow.
always knew I love working with people. There's just something in me that I always like to care about people and take care of them. So even now, especially with older people, I have such a soft spot for them.
Wow. Praise
Um,
God for that.
yeah. And then in the meanwhile, I love to read. I love to, go hiking. We have at the moment, I live in Naas. That is about
Okay.
45,
That's in
50 kilometers.
Kildare. Is it?
It
Okay.
is from Dublin,
Okay.
yeah, 45 kilometers from Dublin in County Kildare.
Oh,
And we have a new church that started in here, so I'm very involved in that.
oh, that's very exciting. Okay, so there's a new church plant in Nays.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay, that's
it all
exciting.
started with small prayer groups on Fridays. And the group
Okay.
started to rise, and then we started to have house worships once a month. So it's been really a pleasure to be part of that. So that's something that is really my biggest focus on at the moment.
Wow, that's really exciting. I think it's really noble of you that you're here in Ireland and you're caring for the people in the country, and not only are you caring for them physically, but even spiritually. By setting up
Mm.
a church, it's an opportunity for different people to be able to come there and hear the love of Christ. I really implore you there with what you're doing, and I hope that God will continue to bless you as you serve Him.
Oh, definitely all praise to God. Growing up as a child, you always hear like, well, I grew up in Adventist family, and growing up, you hear the mission stories, and you hear like how God is working in so many parts of the world, and how like planting new churches. So growing up, I was always praying, God, I want to be part of some project like that.
Wow.
So now God opened the door that I can be a part of a new community, new church plant, and it's really a blessing. And the way God has worked, all glory to Him.
Amen. Like, I think it's so wonderful. most times we're praying for different things. God, I want a bigger car, a bigger house, but and there you are just asking God, to be able to work in his field, to be able to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. I think it's such a wonderful thing and a wonderful opportunity, to take part in planting a church.
Mm.
And I just hope that it's not the last church that you're taking part in, planting, that there'll be many more as well.
Yeah.
So Melita, just to go back to Croatia growing up, what position are you in your family? Are you the youngest? Are you the eldest?
I'm the only one.
Oh yeah.
I'm the
Okay.
only child
And
in
what
my family.
and what's that like being an only child?
Well, my mom gave birth to me when she was 20, and my dad was 23. So basically, I have very young parents, so we grew up together.
I
They often tell me that as I was growing up, they were growing up as well. And I think that in my case, that was very like a good thing because I'm very close with them. When you see
Oh,
my
that's
parents, you would
good.
think they're my brother and sister. You would never say they're my parents.
Oh,
Every
that's
time, wherever
wonderful.
we go, we always get that comment. And it's been really nice because in that way, I'm very connected with my parents, with my family.
Mhm.
Like my mom and me, um, of course, there's a moment when we interact like mother and daughter, and
Of
when I
course.
needed advice. But in general, like our relationship, like with my mom, is
Mhm.
really like sisterly relationship. So I kind of imagine that it's like that having a sister because my mom is like a sister to me, and we borrow each other's things. We wear the same clothes, you
Wow.
know. So
I can see you are truly blessed. I think it's such a joy when you have a good relationship with your parents. And
mm,
I just hope that, it stays that way. And it's okay. So, what is it like being an only child? Are there times that you ever wish that maybe you would have a brother or a sister or your.
yeah. You know, as an early kid, I remember people asking me, "Oh, do you want a brother? Do you want a sister?" And I used to say, "No, I'm fine." But then later growing up, kind of like, like early teens and through my teenage years, I really wished I had a brother or a sister. I wished I was a sibling. Um, but kind of, watching kind of the movies, I always wanted an older brother, which is of course impossible, or that I was a twin. I was always fascinated by that, but none of that is possible. But in general, there are times where it does get lonely, and there are times where you do wish to have a sibling to share things with, that that you're very close with, that you can go out, that although like I have a great relationship with my parents, but sometimes you want somebody else that you can share the things and share your life with beside your parents.
Of course.
So there are good benefits. I mean, there are great things being an only child, but there's also, and I think like one thing as well is being kind of overprotected, which sometimes can do, a bit of damage when growing up.
For
So yeah, but like with the I'm happy how I grew up. I can say I really had a nice childhood,
okay,
but there were very, very many moments when I was writing in my journal that it's very lonely being an only child.
I understand. No, no, I think it's great that you have a good relationship, and I know that all things always work for good. There's a
Yeah.
purpose that God brought you into this world as an only child, and I can only hope that even as you go through life, you meet people, men and women that can become like brothers and sisters, friends
Yeah.
that can become like, your own siblings. Or even as you go out serving other people, you might meet people that you can, interact with in such a way that they'll feel like they are brothers and that they are sisters as well.
As you mentioned that, I just want to say very quickly, you reminded me. And I think that as an only child, who kind of, sometimes has a desire for siblings, I think that really impacts how I view people
Yeah.
and how I interact. I think that one of the reasons is that I can get very close to somebody very quickly.
Okay.
For example, when I interact with younger people, like with teenagers, for example, I have many girls who I'm very good with as that are teenagers, and I always see them as as my younger siblings, that I'm the older one to take care of them. And then
Yeah.
when I have very good friends who are older than me, I always think of them as my older siblings that I can learn from, and that they take care of me and I take care of them. So as you mentioned, I really see that when I look, in my life and people that I'm very close with, it is true. Sometimes you get connected with people maybe a bit quicker in my case than I see in some of my friends that have many siblings.
Of course, but maybe that's the way God intends it for you, that siblings for you, sometimes you can have siblings or even parents, but in a different way. Sometimes
Mm.
someone decides to take you on as their child, or another person might decide, to take you as their sister. So it's all for a good purpose. And I'm happy that you've adopted different siblings for yourself as you go
Yeah.
through life. And yeah. And anyway, at this moment now, I think we'll talk more. We'll get into our testimony now. You're here on Broken But Healed TV, and mostly here, the people that come here share about the goodness of God, the things that God has done in their life as a way to inspire other people so that they can, we just want the world to know the wonderful things that God is doing out there. Because each time when we listen to the news, there's all the bad things that are happening. And here we want to talk, about the goodness of God. Where is God and how He's working in the lives of different people? So feel free to share your testimony. And then, of course,
Yeah.
I'll be asking questions here and there as we go through it. But sure, please do share with us your story.
Yeah, thank you. Well, going back from my childhood, right? I grew up, as I said, my parents were very young, and
Mhm.
I grew up in a very small village in Croatia.
Okay.
So I grew up in a countryside, and growing up, it was really nice.
Okay.
Um, I did have a good childhood, I can say, but I was very far away from my grandparents and the rest of the family.
Oh.
So growing up, it was mostly just my parents and me. My other family was very far away from us, and some of them are in Serbia, which is a neighbor country to Croatia.
Hmm.
So I would see them like once or twice a year. Sometimes I saw them every year, and then there was a time when I didn't see them for like 2 or 3 years. Then I would see them. So that was kind of a bit difficult because I'm very connected. I'm very close with my family. Family is a really big part of my life,
Okay.
but and not all of them are Seventh-day Adventists or necessarily Christians. But God was, my parents always talked to me about Jesus, and I grew up with the um, with that. I'm not gonna say mentality, that sounds kind of wrong, but I grew up in an environment where the message has been put into me that God is our creator and He's very important in our lives.
Okay.
And that I think one message that my parents put into me is that I can come to God no matter what happens in my life. That I can tell Him everything. If I did something wrong, I can confess to Him. And I think that throughout my childhood, I have a really good dad.
Wow.
And because for me, he's really very good figure of how to represent God. So when I think of Father in heaven, I always think of a being who is so loving and so good.
Oh,
Um,
that's wonderful.
and
I think just to get in there, I think it's so important that as parents might not even realize that, it's our primary role as well, whether fathers or mothers, to show our children, the love and the grace of God. as you are saying, when you are loved, there's nothing that even your parent will tell you that you still believe. I believe that even with Isaac, you could see that when Abraham brought him all the way to Moriah, he was obedient because he knew his father's love. So if his father said, God said we should do this, he listened. So I really do applaud your father and mother for
Yeah,
wonderful work in raising you to know God. I think it's the most important thing. And not only did they, raise you to know him, they showed you the way as well. They say
yeah,
children learn more from what parents do rather than what they say. So,
yeah. I'm truly, truly very blessed with them.
mm,
And then, I went to primary school, and I was the only Adventist kid
oh,
in the whole village. I was the only kid who went to the church
and
on
what was that
Saturday.
like being the only,
Uh,
Christian or, the only Adventist in the primary school?
well, when you think about it, like there was 4 or 5 members in my church, and then eventually one lady passed away, so there was even less. And they were all like, there was my parents, one guy, well, there were 2 ladies, and then one lady passed away, and then me.
Oh,
So I was always fascinated by God,
mm,
but going to the church was difficult. I didn't want to go every Saturday. Sometimes it was boring.
oh,
Nobody that I can relate to as a
okay.
kid. And
Was
then
this
when I was
because you were
going,
the only child there in the church?
yeah.
Okay.
So I remember, like there were sometimes events that we would go to some town, and then we would go there, and I would see other kids and get friends. But it was, every few months or sometimes once or twice a year.
Mm,
But I had a good experience. I enjoyed going to these programs. But I remember one particular day where I was 8 years old, and my dad told me about Jesus, that he's coming again, and
wow.
how in heaven, and like in the new earth, that we
Mm,
can talk, we will have animals, and that lions will be good, and that lion and lamb will eat grass together. And I was like asking so many questions, and I was like, whoa, that's amazing. So next day at school, I went out to my friends, and I told them all my dad told me, how Jesus is coming again. But they were not very fascinated.
oh,
Croatia is a very Catholic country, and
okay.
they didn't really, they were not as enthusiastic as I was.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
I believed that always, but kind of my enthusiasm to share the gospel in my school, it went lower a little bit.
Okay.
I felt that they were not interested. So then growing up, sometimes I was very shy to open up about God.
Okay.
Everybody knew that we are Sabbath keepers, but it was a bit tough. But at the same time, I think that even after my teenage years, um, I really see that kind of my focus were not on any kids and what they are doing, on what their parents allow them or not allow them. I kind of was very with my parents, and they put what is right and what is wrong. And what I mean is that, like, as a child, I feel like I was a child with Jesus. I was only kid around Jesus. You
Okay.
know,
Mm.
that was tough many times, but I feel now I see why it happened the way it happened, and I see how it impacted me.
Wow.
But
I think it's really wonderful, like you're saying. Sometimes even for myself, I look back to certain experiences that I've had in life,
yeah,
and you get to a place where you understand why, things happen that way. And I think it's wonderful as well that you can identify that God allowed you
yeah,
that time to be an only child. And as you are even mentioning that you're part of, a church plant, maybe, if you see children that are by themselves, you might know how to,
yeah.
to reach out to them or the young people so that they can find interest in going to church. As you
Mm,
were saying there that, for you sometimes you didn't like going there because obviously we are social beings and we want also to interact with others when we go to worship. So, no, sorry to cut in there.
Not at all,
Yeah.
not at all. And you're actually getting, you actually introduced my next part very good when
Okay.
you mentioned we are very social beings.
Yeah.
I think that the negative side of it is that you always want friends. You know, like I never like to be alone. I was my biggest fear was kind of that I'm gonna be alone and lonely. It was lonely, but like I think that somehow idea of being alone was scaring me before.
Okay.
So then when I look, you know, at my school times, well, in Croatia, primary school is 8 years. So you finish primary school when you're 14 or 15. So
Oh.
it's like long primary school. So growing up, you know, with my classmates, it's you always there is something in me that was I want to be like them, you know, I want to relate to them, I don't want to stand out, I don't want to be different.
Okay.
And sometimes that sometimes I was going against what I believed in just to trying to fit in.
Oh.
And I when I look, you know, especially nearly teenage years and then early teen, you know, like people they love to watch movies, and then I started to watch a lot of movies, and there was like romantic movies, comedy movies, then sometimes they were not very good. And I remember, unfortunately, in Croatia, many my classmates they started drinking very early, and
Oh.
they started to going out very early. So
Mm.
I remember one time specifically is that I think I was 13 at that stage. But uh, we arranged everybody from my school, my classmates, they said that one Friday they want to go out. It was like a cafe. But you know, some people will be drinking, but I never wanted to drink at that stage. I said, I'm not going to be drinking, but I want to go. And when they asked me if I'm in, I said, oh, yeah, I will be there.
Oh.
And then when they said what day, they said Friday evening.
Yeah.
And it was really hard, you know, and I came home and I told my parents they're planning to go out. Not everybody's gonna be drinking. My best friend did not drink, you know, and if she's gonna be coming there, you know, we won't do anything. I was thinking that way, like we won't do anything stupid, like we're not gonna smoke or do anything, but I still want to go there to have fun. And my parents told me, but it's Sabbath.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know, but you know, like it's the like finally opportunity that I can go out, that I can be with them outside of school, that maybe I can fit in. And um, I remember I was kind of arguing with them, and then I felt like Sabbath was a burden. And I was like, is Sabbath not giving me like things that I want to do to enjoy? And I remember that evening, my mom told me, listen, if your best friend is going there, that doesn't mean you have to go there. If you want to go, like she didn't want to let me go. I was very persistent, very stubborn.
Okay.
And she said, like, if you want to go, you can go, but know that God is not God will love you still. God still loves you, but he's not happy with your choice. He will be sad. Like you love God, and but he will be sad. And it's your choice to make. You know what is right, what is wrong, you choose. And I was thinking like that was so hard, you know. And then I was thinking, okay, I'm not gonna go. And I didn't go. And it was really hard not to go. I remember I was so sad at one point. I started to cry, and then later I settled down. And I know at the end I went to sleep in peace. But you
And
know, it's
sorry,
hard.
Melita, can I just get in there? What
Yes,
age were you at this moment when you were
I
hoping to
think
go
it was
out
about
with your
13.
friends?
I think it was about
18. Oh, you were
13.
really young.
Yeah,
Okay.
very young. But it wouldn't be. I remember two particular classmates that were drinking, but not everybody was. And some of the people I knew, I thought they were good influence, but some of the people that I was very close with, I knew,
Yeah.
like my neighbor next door, she was my classmate,
Okay.
and she was planning to go, and she was very good kid, you know. So I knew that like there were other kids that they're not troublemakers, that wouldn't make trouble,
Mm.
but that they're going, and I wanted to be with them.
Of course.
But I think it is about 13, 14. Um,
Well, okay. And where would you
yeah,
go at 13 and 14? Where about would you, go to celebrate
you know,
the
there
class?
was so it's a small village, and there, but in Croatian villages there are a lot of cafes. So many cafes. So they
Okay.
were going to one cafe, and there was a like picado, and they wanted to play that.
Okay.
And so, and like there was like some few games, you know, that they wanted to play. So in my head, like just playing few games, nothing like gambling, but still sound, you know, like I wouldn't gamble, but still sounded fun to me to do, you know, a little bit of games like, I don't know, pool or table tennis, and you know.
Okay. So you were all going to go out without any adult supervision at that stage.
There would be one or two adults there from other classmates, not every parent, but there was a few adults that
Okay.
will be involved.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be completely on our own.
Oh,
But although now looking, those parents wouldn't probably be the best example for children,
oh, I understand.
um, because they wouldn't get drunk, but they themselves will be probably take a drink or something. So now looking, like
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a very great example.
Of course, for young
I don't want
people.
to you know, blame any parent or make parent look bad in the eyes of viewers, but just somebody who is, I think of parents as somebody who guide their children and lead them, and the children follow their footsteps. Now, looking back, in that way of drinking example wouldn't be really good.
Of course, yeah, and
Mm.
definitely. As we said, parents, it's always wonderful when parents can be a good example so that, they can shape young people's morals and the decisions
Mm.
they make as they grow. So,
Yeah.
okay, so then you left it whereby you cried and you stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was just like kind of an example that being an only one
yeah,
kid, like growing up as Adventist, was very hard.
but yeah,
But Um, I learned years later, which I will say, how people do realize, people do observe, and people notice, especially kids. And many times when I thought that nobody would notice me, nobody would look at me, that I'm kind of like invisible,
yeah,
um, years later, I realized that people do observe and they remember some things.
wow.
And there were times where I wasn't the popular kid at all in my school. I was very shy. I was big introvert. I was very quiet.
Hmm.
I had few people that I knew that I talked. There was a very small group of friends that I had. Like I had one best friend and one girl that I talked to. There were a few others that I would interact with, but wouldn't be very close.
Okay.
So school was can could be a tough, especially to make people who are a bit different insecure. You
Hmm.
know, in nationality and religion are a big thing in Croatia, but especially if it's a small village. So because I like the history, there was a war between Croatia and Serbia,
Oh,
and
really?
many of
Okay.
my classmates, yeah.
Oh,
So many of my classmates,
sorry,
they
can I
didn't
just
like,
ask, how far is what's the distance like between Croatia and Serbia?
well, they're neighbor countries.
Oh,
You
really?
know, yeah,
If you
like
had to travel from Croatia into Serbia, how long would it take? Maybe if you flew or by bus
it
or
depends.
hmm.
Croatia has a bit of weird shape. So it
Okay.
depends which parts. Sometimes it can take you 7 hours. For me, where I grew up, it would take us around 4 hours to
Okay.
Serbia. From the capital city where to my grandparents live, it takes about 4 hours.
Okay.
And then where my Croatian grandparents live, it takes you like 1 hour and a half. So
Okay. So it depends with where you are staying. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right. But then, wow, okay, I never knew that part of history that they used to fight, that there
yeah,
was a war between Croatia and Serbia. And what
yeah.
what was the war about? Do you know?
Well, it's kind of a long story. Before
Okay.
it was like
Yeah.
Yugoslavia. I'm sure you know about Yugoslavia, and
Yes,
then
yeah, I've
countries
heard.
became independent, and then religion was a big part of the fighting.
Okay.
And Serbians are usually Orthodox, and Croatians are Catholics.
Okay.
So my mom, she's not she didn't grow up as an Adventist. She got baptized when she was 18. But
Oh,
my mom comes from a mixed marriage where my grandpa is Serbian and Orthodox, and my grandma is Croatian and she's Catholic. So my grandma became Orthodox, so she could marry my grandpa. So
oh,
my mom grew up in a mixed marriage. So we
okay.
kind of say my mom is kind of half half.
Oh,
So what
yeah,
happened
that's
is
good, I
that,
suppose.
yeah, so what happened is that when my mom was growing up, she was living in Croatia.
Oh,
But during the war between Croatia and Serbia, when she was 14, I think she was around 14, but basically Croatians bombarded the house
oh,
of my grandparents when my mom used to live as when she was a teenager because my grandpa was Orthodox and he was Serbian.
oh,
So it got attacked by Croatians, so they had to run away to Serbia. So
oh,
then from when my mom was like 14, she was living in Serbia. So my
oh,
grandparents and my family still lives in Serbia. And as a
okay.
child, when I was going to see them, like I for me, I grew up to love all
What
the
countries?
nations. It
Oh,
doesn't matter where people
okay.
are from. So
Mm.
the fact that there was a war for me is really sad. And that there's still hatred a lot between Croatians and Serbians. But in
Mm.
my case, I have family there and I'm very close there and I have such a great memories. I really love Serbia.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going there tomorrow for 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh,
But
nice. Yeah.
because I was never ashamed to say that I have family in Serbia.
Exactly.
And before I knew, that people didn't like Serbians, all my classmates know that I have a family in Serbia. So sometimes growing up, they would make very bad comments, and yeah, they would say pretty bad comments. So for some people, classmates, they didn't want to have much interaction with me just because I have family in Serbia. For me, it never made sense,
I
but
didn't know it was
uh,
that
yeah,
serious.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Thank you
so
anyway
that,
for the brief story. At least I've learned something. I wasn't aware. I've heard of Serbia and I've heard of Croatia. I think I know a lot of people here in Ireland, they love going on holiday to Croatia. They've
yes,
told me that it's such a beautiful country.
you
And
have to go.
I hope
If you
I
haven't
really
gone,
do
you
look
have to
forward to
go.
going there one of the days on a holiday, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Um.
So
So
continue
as I
from where you
mentioned,
left it or where you left it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like as a child, I was very big introvert. I was very closed. If I have a circle of people that I feel comfortable with,
Yeah.
I was very open. It's really funny. As a child, I was very open. I was such an extrovert. I had so much energy. They used to call me tsunami. And my uncle said that if I can be plugged in somewhere, that I would light up the whole city because I was so
Yeah.
energetic.
Wow.
If you didn't have your eye on me for a second, I would already be on the road. And so many times there, like a car could hit me. And I remember sometimes so many times when like a car would almost hit me. And God protected me. But
Really?
somehow when I
What
became a
age was
teenager,
this? What age
sorry?
was what at what age were you so full of energy maybe as a young child, and then when you became a teenager you became
Yeah.
introvert?
Well, my dad always tells story when I was 2 or 3 that I was like that I often went on the road and how he had to run me to very quickly to pick me up before a car would hit me. I remember an instance when I was 5 and 6 that I don't know why, like I don't know how happened, but I remember I was playing, I think, outside with a ball, and ball would go on the road, and I would have my eye on the ball, and I would just like run quickly to get the ball, and I didn't,
Yeah,
see the car coming, and then the like person will hit the brakes, and sometimes they will say, are you crazy? What, of course, now when I'm learning to drive, I understand their frustration.
of
But
course. Yeah.
yeah, I was very, very energetic, and I cannot explain what happened when I became like 10, 11, and so on. I was so shy. Like parents, I remember, not parents, my teachers. I remember I was a good student, but teachers will call my parents and say, she is good at school, but she doesn't talk. What's the matter?
Oh,
And I do talk to the people I'm comfortable with, but to open up, it's impossible.
okay.
It was very hard. I would kind of wait for a person to approach me to talk.
Mm.
And in my head, I would have conversation. Like I like when in my head, I would be, like having scenario or talk, but I wouldn't encourage
Yeah,
somebody. When I see somebody struggling, I would like want to say so many things, but I was sometimes it would be too hard for me to reach that person.
of course. Yeah.
But then when I was 14, so the system in Croatia, after you finish your primary school, you go to secondary school.
Okay.
And basically, you choose what you want to do in future. So the secondary school there, or high schools, they are mostly career based.
Oh,
So, for example, if you want to be a chef, you go to the secondary school for chefs. If you want to be a nurse, there's a high school for nurses. And like, I want to be a midwife. So there was one school in the whole country, it was in the capital city for midwives. And like, if you're not sure what you want to
sorry,
do,
can I also ask this school that
yeah,
you had to go to in secondary, was it far from your home or was it close to your
yeah. Well, by car it was nearly 2 hours, 1 hour and a
school?
half to
Did
two
you,
hours.
was it like a boarding school where you could stay?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay, okay, all right. No,
yeah,
I just wanted, to understand a bit more and for our
yeah.
viewers as well when they're watching. Okay, that's
No
very
problem.
interesting.
No problem. Feel free to interrupt and ask a question anytime.
Okay, very
Yeah, if you didn't know what you want to do like in your life, there are general schools like in Ireland, where you study all the subjects. So I wanted to be a midwife, so I went to midwifery school,
Mhm.
and that was one of such a big blessings, and one of the best times of my life, and yet sometimes the worst times.
Okay, maybe
I
you
was
explain to
away.
us. Sorry,
Yes,
you explain to us what made it the best, or no, what made you to have the best moments, and what, maybe one or two things why it was the worst moments. What was
yeah,
that about?
yeah. I loved it. I feel like I got my independence. I
Okay.
felt like um, I felt always free. I didn't feel tied up at home. Sometimes I felt overprotected, and that was sometimes very annoying to me. When I went to boarding school, although I was very shy, but I sometimes somehow started to open. And I was still introvert, but better. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. I had in our bedroom, I had three other girls, so there was four of us in total,
Okay.
and it was nice. The times it was very challenging. Sometimes it was a girls' school, obviously, because it's
Yes,
midwives.
yeah.
So sometimes it was very tough to be in a girls' school.
Of
Too many girls in the same place.
I
There can be
know.
so much drama involved, especially if a guy happens to be there, or if a few girls know the same guy that they like. And so I loved to have connections. I loved, now when I say go out, I mean that when I was in boarding school,
Yeah.
it was like go to town, go
Of
to
course,
walk at the
yeah.
city center, go to do a little bit of shopping, go to eat out. I remember at that time we used to go to McDonald's often, and when we go to McDonald's, it was like we say like, oh, it was a big event.
Yeah.
In my boarding school,
Hmm.
see, my school and my dormitory is one building.
Oh,
um, when you enter the building, that's school. There are four classrooms, and
okay.
then when you climb up the stairs, there are rooms are there.
Mm.
So it's like 5 seconds between school and my bed. So during the breaks, we didn't even need a bag. We used to carry our books on our hands. Every break, we went to our bedroom. I remember I felt like I had to, so my parents, they would give me money to live like there and to pay the rent for the boarding school.
Okay.
And I remember I would get a certain amount of money, and now I have to pay the rent every month. And now I have the rest of the money for me, and I have to learn how to manage my finances. I have to learn, I don't want to spend it all. I was seeing my parents, at the beginning, it was every week, every weekend, and then later it was I went home every second week.
Okay.
Um, I I
And
think that
sorry, how did you feel at this moment, being an only child and being away from your parents, for that time? Or maybe it was a good thing because you were able to interact with other young people your age. What was the feeling
you
like?
know You know, it wasn't very hard for me to leave home. I went to Bible summer camps that was like 1 week, but there were other trips that I took that were like 1 week long, but away from my parents.
Okay.
And it wasn't my first time away because I was thinking, I'm gonna see them every weekend anyways.
Okay.
But I think the moment that was very tough was I was so excited to go back home.
Hmm.
It was so special. My mom would greet me. At the beginning, my dad used to collect me, but when I started to go by train, my mom used to collect me at the train station that is less than 10 minutes walk from our house. And there would be food at the table. It was like a feast. My mom would make such a nice cake and my favorite meal. And my dad would come home from work, and it was really nice. But it was really tough because on Sundays when I had to go back to school and to saying bye to them, that was, I think, very tough moment.
Of course, yeah.
That was really hard. And although I loved my school and I really had a nice time there, it was still very tough, that part. And I felt now that, my boarding school was my home now. When I go back home to our house where we lived, it's like it's gonna be for the weekend, and
Yeah,
then I have to go.
of course.
So that was very tough.
Oh, I can imagine. Okay. And tell me, during that time when you were in this boarding school, were you still able to go to church or?
Yes,
Okay.
that was when I actually started to go to church, because it was capital city and I was 14. So there was a few more people my age, and
Okay.
that really left a big impact on me.
Mm.
Um, uh, when my parents would come to see me,
Mhm.
so in the first year, I would go home every second weekend, and the time that I'm not going home, they will come on Saturday to see me, and we
Oh,
will go to in the morning to church together.
oh,
So
that's
this time,
lovely.
there's more people my age.
Okay.
That's the time where I became more frequent in the church,
Okay.
and it was a blessing. Although I have to say I hated up waking up in the mornings, and that part I would be. There were times where I hated it at the beginning. I hated the process of waking up and getting ready and going to the church, but I loved it when I entered the building. And I was always happy I went. But before I went to the church, it was really hard. It was such a big struggle. Um, and even throughout the week, when I was looking forward to go to the church, something on Saturday would happen that would always try to prevent me from going.
Oh, really?
Sometimes they would just like something would happen, or sometimes I would just get angry for no reason, and I would be wondering like, God, why is this happening? Like throughout the week, I was so looking forward. Now I feel like I'm hating this. My parents read Bible to me, and we read Bible, but that was the stage where I always prayed. Even when I was a kid, I always prayed, but I didn't have much of the habit to read Bible for myself. My relationship with God was mostly with the prayer and talking. Deep down, it's really interesting. As a teenager, I always wanted to have that closeness with God, but somehow, although I was going to church, I got into a really bad friendship group, and that were really bad influence for me. So, as that was when I was 15 now, still in the same school in the same city, but we met some people like in my school. But
Yeah.
although I was going to church, I knew I want to get baptized. It was my big goal,
Okay.
to be a missionary. But at that moment, at that stage, I felt like things were going down the road.
Oh.
But to answer the
And
question,
what could have attributed to, to the distance that eventually at some stage you felt distant from God? What,
yeah,
yeah, what caused that?
uh, to answer the question previously, it's connected to this one, is like
Okay.
one of the things, the best things I like in the boarding school is independence.
Okay.
You learn you have to take care of your own. There are caretakers that take care, but
Yeah,
you have to learn how to live on your own and
of course.
to be successful, to to do something, the effort. You have to put an effort in school to
Yeah.
have a good grades. You It's like the effort, putting effort into it, which I really liked. And as I said, I think one thing that I really liked is that I have my parents are not very rich. Yeah.
Okay.
So my parents didn't grow up very rich, and I didn't come from a rich family. My dad was the only one who was working. My mom couldn't find a job
Okay.
that she would have Saturdays off.
Mm.
So when I got finances, they gave me what they could, but it was never big. I can't say I got the least money but I know that I never like to talk about money a lot with other people my age, how much we got from home. But I remember some people were getting double or sometimes triple than I got.
Yeah.
So I think that having to stretch my money and use it very wisely,
Mm.
that's a lesson that I learned.
Okay.
That I think that was my best part, and
Okay.
I
And
liked having friends. The worst
I
part,
really think it's important, those are very important lessons that you need
yeah,
to know. We all need to learn managing money wisely. And I'm glad that it's something that you learned earlier on at a young age.
yes,
Yeah, because it's
yeah.
very important as you go through life.
Yeah, sometimes you have to stretch. I have to buy a train ticket. If I go out, there are other expenses that I have to take care of. Like I don't know if my clothes got broken, if my shoe, I need to buy a new shoes or something. Like I have to put the money aside for that as well.
Yeah.
Um, and the worst part. I think that at that time I still didn't develop my identity in Christ. It was still the desire to fit in, and I think movies and watching movies and bad music had really bad influence on me.
Okay.
And
So if I may ask, like,
yeah,
what kind of movies and what kind of music would you say you listen to
yeah,
much at this
yeah,
stage? Because I think it's a very important thing to highlight, especially for young people. Because at this moment, I feel you're also talking to young people because, when we are young in our teenage years, music has a
Mhm.
big impact and, movies as well. And especially in a time that we live in, young people are constantly looking at something, so maybe if you can just highlight the kind of
Yes,
movies you're watching then and the music.
I liked mystery movies.
Okay.
Not horror. I watched some horror before and I didn't like it.
Okay.
But I did it also as trying to fit in. If somebody likes it, I would watch it.
Okay.
But I didn't like that. I liked mysteries, but mostly comedies. Like a good comedy and especially romantic movies. I was crazy about romantic movies. And that portrayed very false picture of what love is
Okay.
and what love is like between boy and a girl. It's very bad portrayed. It's really interesting how in Hollywood movies, everything is perfect when you're in a relationship, but when it comes to marriage, everything is terrible. You can't wait to get out of it.
Mm.
And just like that. Oh yeah, and in Hollywood movies, I
Yeah.
think like when you look at older movies, to get into relationship, like it when you look at I remember seeing a movie before and if you're 18 and you like in a relationship or you like a guy that was so early you couldn't do that, their parents were so against that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, nowadays, like when you look at the movies, it's like 16-year-old, and it's really young, really, really young age. And when you look at what I notice kind of in like those movies is like you have to fall in love earlier and earlier and earlier, the younger and younger and younger you are, which and start daydreaming about it. Like many girls daydream about their wedding. That's different. But when you feel that all around the pressure that you're 16, 17, you
Mm.
have to be in a relationship now, or even 15, like you have to be in a relationship. Look, I was 14 and most of my friends they were in relationship and I didn't have anybody and I already felt pressured. Oh, I don't have anybody, like it's
And
like now when I look, it's terrible.
yeah, can I just also come in them a little? Can you say what could have pressured all, your friends or even you to feel you needed a relationship? Could it be because of the romance movies that, painted
Yeah,
relation? Okay.
yeah,
It's interesting to know. I think it's something that most parents would also need to be aware of.
oh yeah,
In young people, that it's very important, the content that we watch. As the
mhm.
Bible said, by beholding, we become changed. So,
Yes,
hey,
yes,
so thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'll let you continue. Okay.
very
So,
welcome. And
yeah.
but it is an issue,
Mm,
like it does become a struggle.
yeah.
And so like romance TV shows and movies. I'm
Yeah.
not saying necessarily all of them are bad. They're
Mhm.
like, but I would advise like young people to not to stay away from it, and parents to be careful what their teenagers, what their kids
Watching.
see, because we observe a lot by seeing, and we get that image in our heads. What
Okay.
happens if you hang out with people who love the same movies? The more you hang out with them, that's the same interest, right? The more you watch them together, and then that picture's becoming more and more unrealistic. And then when you're surrounded by, that's the same for guy and girl.
Yeah.
Like even for guys, I think that if all the friends have girlfriends, you want one as well. Sometimes it's because you want to experience love, like romantic love. Sometimes it's to trying to fit in. Same with girls, like especially trying to fit in. And that's when, oh yeah, and about the music, concerning the music, it was mostly also about love and broken heart. Many of them are drugs, but I think about young people, sometimes it's not even the lyrics sometimes it's the melody. So I noticed that if the melody is good, you would listen. Many people, including myself, I used to listen to the music like that just because the melody is good. Until I learned the lyrics, and I was like, wow, they're talking about drugs and alcohol and nightclubs and broken heart, or how they changed their partners or girlfriends or boyfriends every other day. That's not really the message that we want to listen to, because it gets
Well,
stuck in the head.
hmm.
And
I think,
like,
like as you are even saying, when the Bible talks about fornication, you can see
yeah,
that there's
yeah,
a lot of that going on, and young people end up engaging in certain things in relationship like sex and or
mm,
even just being romantic with multiple people, and that's it affects them in so many different ways,
oh
mentally,
yeah,
physically. So I think it is parents, Melita here is just really encouraging us to take a look at the content that our children are watching and what they are listening to, because it can really shape who they become and it can affect the decisions that they make later in life. So it's important, just even as
yeah,
Melita is saying here, that we also make sure that we know the friends or the type of people that our children are hanging out with. It's important because they can influence and shape the choices and the decisions they make. So no, I'll bring
definitely.
it back to you, Melita. Thank you for that. I just also wanted to, to remind our viewers whilst we are still there.
I'm talking from a child's perspective. I can imagine you saying as a parent's perspective,
Yes. Well, I'm a parent too, and I have a teenager, a 16-year
Yeah,
old. So I'm really learning a lot tonight. And
yes.
so are our
And
viewers.
one thing,
Mm,
um, I don't know how my parents did it,
mm,
but they taught me, they said this is right, this is wrong. The Bible says this.
mm,
And then growing up, they were afraid. I was going to a different city. They were far away from me. There's going to be a bunch of teenagers, people my age, who will have bad influence as well.
mm.
And they always said, this is right, this is wrong, but you have a choice to make. We raised you, and like obviously, like I was 14, 15, they're like, I'm still a minor, under 18, and throughout the life, parents guide us. But my point is that they said like you're old enough to that you can think with your head, and you go to the church as well, and God's will, and there's like what is right, what is wrong, right?
Mhm.
But we cannot make decisions instead of you. We disagree, and there are many choices that they disagreed with, and they said like we may agree or disagree with some of your choices.
Mm.
Don't do drugs, like don't get a boyfriend very early, don't drink, but you have to, like, but if we all the time forbid you, if the time all the time you are being too pushy, we don't they didn't want me to start hating them.
Mm.
So like they would say don't do this, like they would guide it. But if I was very stubborn at times, they said like it's your choice now. We did our best, you're in God's hands, but I know that they can not take choice away from me, which was a good thing. And I think that I go back to what I mentioned, is that I think that they represented the picture of a God who is very loving father, and
Yes.
that no matter what happens in my life, I can go back to them. So although I was going to the church, and I found it interesting once I get into the building, and I hear the messages were lovely, but at the same time, I was watching movies on Saturday, I was listening to music on Saturday. Eventually I started to with a few of my friends, and I started to go out to the cafe. My friend, she liked the one guy that was working there, and
Mm.
so like we went out there for a few times. Well,
Mhm.
actually many times. It was at the beginning, it was a few times, and we started to go there more and more often.
Okay.
So just to mention one thing is that when I was 13, we were supposed to go to Germany. We were planning to live in Germany.
Oh,
Kind
it
of
was that
growing
with
up.
your father and your mother?
Yeah, my
Same
father was
down.
supposed to go there first, and my
Okay,
mom and me were supposed to come. But
okay.
somehow, the boss that my dad, so my dad kind of found a work there, but the boss, when my dad was supposed to go there, the boss stopped answering the phone. So
Oh,
my dad was there, we packed things for 3 months, and he never went there because the boss never answered. So we were thinking that's a no from God. We are staying back, we are still staying in Croatia. But what happened is that like I kind of always knew I wouldn't always live in Croatia. I don't know how to explain, but I just knew one day I would move.
wow.
But when I was talking with my parents, the plan was for me to finish my high school.
Hmm.
And when I oh sorry, when I would
Free. Okay, so
So then I always knew I would go somewhere abroad. So the plan was that when I'm 18, we would go somewhere to Germany or Ireland,
oh,
and I would work there as a midwife, and I would probably go to college to be like, to further my education.
mhm.
But um, it didn't happen that way. I went to Ireland when I was 15, 1 month before I turned 16. But it's
Okay.
I always felt that God brought me out of Egypt.
Okay,
My
if I
group of
may
friends,
ask, sorry, Melita, moving to Ireland, did you move with your father and your mother or just
um,
by
my mom
yourself?
my mom came here in 1st of November 2017, and
Oh,
then my dad and me we came on 31st of December 2017. So basically we came here and we celebrated 2018.
oh,
So it's gonna
okay.
be 7 years this year that I
Wow.
live in Ireland. So we
Okay.
all live together now.
Oh,
But
that's wonderful.
my mom came here first.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, but I the reason why I mention is like getting out of Egypt is that um the friend group that I started was really bad and bad for me, worse and worse for me. I even started, I never got drunk, but I would take a drink occasionally. And I was planning that, when we turn 18, we will go to the clubs and things like that. And if I stayed in Croatia, I believe I would.
And at
But
what age would you say you started taking drinks?
that was just before I turned, that was just before I came to Ireland. So I was 15 at that time, which is very young. Now when I look, it's like very young, but when you're 15, you think that's a lot, that you're old, that you're mature, that you're great, that you know what you're doing, which you have no idea. That's for that stage where you think you know the best. And to all my teenagers, if anybody is watching this that are teenagers, um, yes, you may think you know the best, but be wise enough to listen to the advice of the older person. Just listen, just take it into consideration. Everybody has a choice. You will have a choice of your own to make, but don't block your ears not to hear it. Just a little bit try to think about the advice that they are saying,
Exactly.
because at the end, many times, if I listen to my parents and the adults in my life, I wouldn't have as many regrets. And that's something that nobody wants. I think that's the hardest on a person when they have a regret.
Of course.
um so me coming so just before I came to Ireland, my life looked like I had a group of friends. I went out, I was good at school, I was generally enjoying life. But and I was still praying, although I knew kind of the situation is getting worse and worse. And I had a crush on a guy who was really bad influence on me, and really saw how that would impact me at that time. So, and especially as I mentioned, the movies and the songs, they were, like sometimes we hear the song and it
Yeah.
can be a beautiful song about being
Mhm.
brokenhearted, But
Yeah.
I think sometimes we as a girl, like we can get so full of emotion, we feel like we're going through it,
Yeah.
and like you've never had any experience, but you're singing
Yeah.
the song like you know what the song is talking about, and you
Of
get so
course.
into
Yeah.
it, and then you want your life to become like a story, a nice
Oh,
story.
yeah. Mm.
But now I'm gonna move. So I came to Ireland. It was very tough at the beginning, very hard. We had friends in Ireland who were inviting us to come, and my uncle, my dad's brother and his wife, that's my uncle and my aunt, they were living in Ireland as well. So what happened is that in Ireland, we were staying with our friends, right? My mom was staying with our friends, me and my dad we stayed with our friends.
Okay.
But then the situation changed a little bit, and we had to find accommodation in 1 week. And like for everybody who lives in Ireland, they know that it's extremely
It's
difficult to find
difficult to
accommodation
find
in
it.
Ireland,
No, that's
especially in
true.
1 week.
That's very
1 week is
true.
crazy.
Yeah.
So we were praying and praying, and that was very stressful because my parents were very stressed a lot at that time. And there were many arguments going on. There were many fights, many tears, many harsh words in anger being said, and that was really hard time. Thank God my parents didn't get a divorce. They are still together, and thank
All
God
right.
for that. But that was a time where I wasn't sure what's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
there are many times I was praying, God, don't let my parents separate. I don't know how would I live. That was a very stressful time for me,
But do you
and
think maybe this stressful time came because they moved and things were a bit
yeah.
harder? Oh, okay. All right.
See, everything was different. My mom didn't know the language. My mom didn't know English at that time. My dad knew a little bit. I knew English. I was very good in English. My
Oh,
dad knew. My dad was helping me with my homework, so when I was learning, he was learning as well.
oh,
But my mom, she didn't know much of English. Only hi, how are you? And I'm good. That's literally it.
oh, it can be
So it was,
frustrating. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
very hard. We came here with very little money. Now all of a sudden we have to find accommodation of our own, and accommodation is very expensive.
Yes.
My dad found a job 3 days when we came from 3 days within Ireland,
Oh,
and he's still in that job almost 7 years.
wow, that's really good.
It was such a
Yeah.
blessing,
Yeah, it's
but
such a blessing. Yeah, God is
yeah,
good. Yeah.
yes, and
Mm.
it was very hard to keep the Sabbath because you have 1 week to learn to find accommodation, and then there's Friday evening and there's like Saturday day. That means 1 day out of the week you cannot look for accommodation. It feels like a
Yeah,
loss.
of course.
That was very heavy. But
Yeah.
I want to say that was beginning of my real journey with God.
All right.
Uh,
Okay. I'm really excited. I better
it was
sit
up and
up.
down. Yeah, now it gets there.
Yeah, it's
I
getting
grew up in two
exciting.
countries, so
Okay.
Ireland is really, really my really. I love Ireland, although sometimes very difficult.
Mm.
Basically, what happened is that so our friends told us that 1 week, that Sunday, that was 1 week, we have to leave their place, and
Yeah.
basically they bought a house, and they were moving to the new house, but the house is in Finglas,
All
but
right.
no heating, no beds, no kitchen, no anything. And they said that it's better if we find accommodation of our own. And then Sunday came where we had to go. We went for viewings. We went for the viewings, and we got rejected. We sent so many emails, no response. But also, what happened is that some people around us, they were telling my parents to lie. So they said that Irish people, landlords, they don't want teenagers. They want families. They don't like kids and teenagers. They like mostly couples. So they were telling my mom and my dad to say that they are a couple, and that when we go for a viewing, I would be sister of my mom,
All
and that
right.
they wouldn't tell that I'm their daughter.
Okay.
So that they would get the one bedroom apartment as a couple, and I would stay with them, and like which is illegal. but
course.
that's the way we can get accommodation.
Hmm.
And I remember it was very tough, very stressful situation. You don't know Ireland. Like Croatia is a very small country. Ireland is much bigger. People say Ireland is a small country. Yes, it is, but Croatia is much smaller. So when you come to Ireland, it's huge
Okay.
for me. So when we came there, it was very stressful. Our like we do support each other within the family, my parents and me, but at the same time, like our relationship is being stretched and pulled.
Yeah.
The nerves are very stretched.
Yeah.
So we came to view one bedroom apartment,
Yeah.
but when landlord asked who am I, my mom said, "Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. My mom never lied that I'm not their daughter. My mom never lied that I'm the sister, and she didn't hide that I'm the daughter. But we did go to look one bedroom apartments. But that one viewing that landlord asked, "Who am I?" My mom said, "Look, we are desperate. There's three of us. Today is our last." That was Sunday. Um, the day we had to go. So, we have to go out, and this is our only hope for now. Like, this is my daughter, my husband, and me. Um, like, we are a family, but we need really a place. So even though it's one bedroom, we're gonna make it work, but we really need a place. The landlord was very good. He said no, because he can't, but he tried to see with other few people if they have something available for us.
Wow.
They didn't at the time. We didn't get a place,
Mm.
but my uncle and aunt, they were in Ireland, and they were living in a one small bedroom apartment. So my parents' plan was that I will go to be with my uncle and aunt, and my family will go to like a hostel, the cheapest place that they can find.
Yeah.
But my uncle and aunt, they said, "No way, you are all sleeping together." So like we will all stay, even though it's a very, very small one bedroom apartment, but we are all staying together. That was a big blessing.
Of
We were
course,
still
yeah. God
we were
made a
still
way.
together.
Yeah.
Yes, so we didn't end up in the street.
Thank God for that.
Then exactly,
Mm.
and then it was still a stressful situation.
Yeah.
And then like we are very good, have great relationship, but when you're in a small place, very tiny place for some period of time, it can get intense.
Mm.
So we were still looking for accommodation, and I kind of saw like it was getting more and more stressful. It was a blessing in one way. We're all together. It's great. We have a roof under our heads. We're not on the streets. We are with people who know more about Ireland than we do. But
Exactly.
I have no friends. I don't go out to explore on my own ever before. Like I would get lost. I would get lost so easily. I'm not
Of
really good with
course, yeah.
orientation. So I was all days on my own, inside all the time. Sometimes I would go for a walk with my mom and with my auntie, but most of the time I would be inside, and everybody else would be working.
Mm.
So, and I was 15 still at that time. So what happened is that I started to pray to God. I
Mm.
said, "God, I don't want anything for my birthday." I was turning 16. That was January now. And my birthday is end of January. So, God, I don't want anything for my birthday, any presents for the rest of my life. I don't care. But please give us a roof under our heads. Please give us an apartment that is gonna be just my parents and me, that we don't have to share like rooms or house with anybody.
Yeah.
And and I was praying, and I kept praying and praying, and
Mm.
I got very close with God. And what happened is that just the day before my birthday, we had a viewing of one apartment, and landlord said yes to us because my dad was the first one who showed up to viewing, and he had a chance to talk with the landlord. So because my dad was the first one that showed up for the viewing,
Yeah.
we got the apartment,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was on our own. We lived in Fairview, which is a family area, very
Oh,
good
I do
area.
know it. Yeah, Dublin.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
schools are near.
And it's close
Very
to
good
town.
area. Yes,
Yes.
really good part of the town, and we don't know anything in Dublin. So like the way God took care of us, and it's on my birthday. It's my birthday gift from God.
Wow.
And so that we got apartment on Thursday. On Friday was my birthday that year. And
So you were turning 16, I think.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
all
And
right.
that's my first really big experience with God, that God answered my prayer when I needed it the most.
Okay.
We stayed there 5 years, and I don't know how lucky or unlucky I was that I went to girls' school again.
Okay.
And that was very different than when I got used to. We have in Croatia, we don't have uniforms. Here we had uniforms. I didn't mind that. My school had 100 students. This school had 300 students.
Okay. So it was
My
a much
school had
bigger
four
school.
classrooms.
All right.
Four classrooms. This school has so many
Multiple.
rooms.
So many.
Um,
Big
I had
change.
to I had to go by bus alone. I never went anywhere alone. Even when I was in boarding school in Croatia, when we went to like cinema or to eat out in McDonald's, it was always my friends
Hmm.
with me, never
Okay.
alone.
Yeah.
This time I had to go alone, very hard.
Yeah.
But
Same.
like the girls, they were not very mean to me. They accepted me okay.
Okay.
Everybody was in groups, but there was two girls that were very nice to me, and like throughout my staying in school. So this was okay. When I was in transition year, so I started secondary school in March,
Okay.
transition year, and it finished in May, and then I went to fifth year.
Hmm.
Fifth year was good. I liked it.
Okay.
Um, in Croatia, you have to learn all the subjects. I had 16 subjects to learn in Croatia.
Oh,
And in Ireland, I had only like eight
all right.
subjects.
Okay.
And I was like, you can choose the subjects. That's so cool.
Yeah. That's
And it was
wonderful.
so amazing. I loved it. So I had nice experience in my fifth year.
Okay.
Sometimes it was a bit tough with school, but in Croatia, one class is 45 minutes. Here it's 1 hour. School
All
is,
right.
I
Okay.
don't know, from maybe like eight, half eight
Hmm.
until 1 or 2.
Okay.
Here it was like from 9 to half 3, 3:30, and I was like, that's so long. But it was good.
Okay.
Um, Still, I had experiences with God,
Okay.
but that was when I was 16. Yes, when I was 16 and 17, I started to drink. I never got drunk, but I started to drink and I went out in pubs.
Oh,
And often mostly it will be on Friday evenings, sometimes Saturday evenings, but mostly Friday evenings. And that means that on Saturday mornings, I would be too tired to go to church.
and how did
And
your parents,
um,
sorry, Melita, how did your parents
yes,
take this? Because I know in Croatia you had drinks sometimes, but
yeah,
um, did the parents know when you're in Croatia or they only found
yeah,
out? They
yeah.
knew. Oh, okay.
They knew it because, like, for example, if we went out on Saturday evening to cinema, my mom would go with me. But we had a very close friend of ours in Ireland.
Okay.
We met. They came. Um, when we got to our house, we got neighbors and we got very close with them. They are also from Croatia,
Mm.
and we were still very good together, very close with each other. But that was and but with our neighbor, that is a friend of ours, we went to out in the pubs to drink together,
Oh,
and they knew that she wasn't really bad in the terms of that she would tell me to drink or do drugs or something like that. But
Yes.
like for my dad, it was very hard. Of course, I didn't agree with everything I did, and I always looked older than I really am. I'm 22, and I always looked older than I really am. So although you have to be 18, I always looked older. So nobody ever asked me for my documents or ID or my age. And so I started to go out. I started on Friday evenings. It was really hard for my dad, but I was always close with him. Um, when I in Croatia, my dad was the only one who was working. So he was the person who would go to work very early in the morning. He would come home very late at night. The only day I would see him was actually Sabbath. So, and I'm like, daughters are very close with their dads
Of
most of the
course.
time. So I
Of
was very
course.
attached. He was my superhero, and I see him only 1 day per week. So it was really hard
Okay.
because when I go to sleep, he comes home late. So we didn't have much interaction. So when we saw each other, it was very special time together.
Of course.
Um, it must be a lot of sacrifices. I can imagine how tired he was.
Yeah.
He was working many Sundays as well. So if there was a Friday or a Sunday that my dad would be off, that was like, wow, my dad is off, you know. So when we came to Ireland, my dad is working from 8 to 5. So like, for the first few months, it was like, whoa, my dad came at home at 6 o'clock. That's so weird. That's so cool. That's so unusual, Like my dad never used to come at 6 o'clock unless it was Sabbath, like Friday. And so I think like we got very close here, but as also we were always close even when I was still drinking, when I started to drink more
And
often.
how did your mother take it?
She didn't like it, but she didn't like it. Sometimes she would go out with me. But like, um, yeah, sometimes they would go out together, but wouldn't be drinking then. Although I did drink in front of her before, and but I think I focused on my dad because it hurt him more. It really hurt him more. So, then I was, so that's 16, 17, that was that period of time. My dad joined choir my dad joined choir in the church. And my dad used to ask me all the time because I love singing. I'm not a good singer. I love to sing in general. It's not really nice to hear, but he kept asking me, "Do you want to join the choir? Do you want to join the choir?" Week after week. He had such a great time. And I said, no, I don't want to join the choir. I don't find it interesting. Maybe one day, right now. See, in the church, it's really important to have friends.
Yeah.
I had people I talk with, but I never felt that in Ireland, my beginnings, that I truly had like really, really friends. So that was also something that, didn't really keep me in church. A funny thing, I still continue to pray to God, and like that God would guide me through the day, that God will be with me, His presence with me. There were times where I said, God, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I feel like I want to enjoy life now, and then later on I'll get, closer to you, because that was but like that picture of my head. But so when I was 17 now, my dad was kept asking me to join the choir. I kept saying no. And I can't describe this. My dad,
Yeah.
he said that they are singing in a church. That they are singing in a church. Yeah, like they had many choir practices. Now they're actually singing during the service. So he told me, "Do you want to come?" And I said, "Yes, I will."
Okay.
So that morning I woke up so tired. I had a really stressful week at my school. I was so tired, but at the same time, like I want to go to see him singing. The only reason that I went to church that day was singing. It
Yes.
was very hard morning, very hard morning. And I was so cranky. I was so angry. I was giving out all the time. In the mornings, as I said, I don't know what it was, but um I used to hate mornings, Sabbath mornings, hate them. But when I get to the building, I loved it.
You
But it's the
enjoy it.
process of getting there.
Of course.
So I got into the church.
Mm.
Service was lovely. I enjoyed listening to the choir. They sang very nice. The choir leader, when she was leading the choir at the time, she was very lovely. And she came up to me and she asked me, Mel, do you want to join the choir? And I wanted to say no. And I opened my mouth to say no, but somehow I said yes.
Wow.
I don't know. I remember that moment. I don't know how it happened.
Mm.
And I said like yes. And she was like, great, give me your phone number. And I was like, I said yes, and now I cannot say no. I was like, I said yes, and I was like, why? Like, God, what happened now? Why did I say yes?
Yeah.
Because occasionally I would go to church still. It wasn't very regular, occasionally,
Mhm.
once a month, once in 2 months, you know. But I would immediately as the service finished, I would go back home. Never wanted to stay more. So that means choir practices were every 2 weeks after potluck. So now I have to stay for the
Yeah.
potluck. Now I have to and for the choir. Wow, I thought it was terrible. Anyways, but I said yes, so I had to do it. And
Mm.
the choir practice was next Saturday.
Okay.
I joined. I loved it.
All right.
I felt that the more I joined, I felt I have family there.
Mm.
And it was such a beautiful thing. When I joined the choir, I remember when I went for the summertime 2019, I went out to see my friend, and
Mm.
that I was still keeping in touch when I was when I was in Ireland, but she was my best friend in Croatia,
Mm.
from Croatia, and when I was going to boarding school there.
Yeah.
And we went out in the club. I was 17 that time. As
Mm.
I said, I looked older, nobody asked me my age.
Okay.
And there was music that I used to listen to, dancing. I did have a few drinks. Few boys started to flirt with me. It was like, oh, you're great, it's a movie now, like live from the movie.
Um,
The morning I woke up was terrible, absolutely terrible. And I said, okay, never again. I came back to Ireland and I started to get more involved in the church. I started to get more the choir practice, more regular in church, started to come every Sabbath. And I remember one program in the afternoon, there was somebody's baptism. And I looked and I was there, the baptism. I wanted to stay. I was the one who said, let's stay. And something really touched me. I was like, when that lady got baptized, I was like, I want to be the next one. I want to get baptized. And the pastor said, like, if anybody wants to get baptized, reach out to me. And immediately I went to him and I said, like, I want to get baptized.
mm.
And that's when I decided people start drinking when they're 18. I stopped. I said, like, it was just before I turned 18. I said, that was like November or December 2019.
Mm.
I said, Lord, I'm not going to drink anymore. I don't want this.
Wow.
I want to be baptized. And
Wow.
for me, baptism is something very holy.
Of
You
course.
don't get baptized and continue with your old life. I wanted
Yes.
change.
Amen.
And so I got baptized during COVID. I finished
Praise
my
God.
secondary school. I wanted to do midwifery. I missed midwifery by 3 points. I didn't write my leaving cert. It was predicted grades. I missed my first choice midwifery and I got into nursing.
Okay.
And that was so when I got baptized, it was after. So I did 1 year of nursing. It was online. I loved it.
Okay.
Now, because it was COVID, they didn't let me go to
Of course,
hospitals
yeah.
and replacements. That's a
Okay.
miracle itself. When I was my first year, I had 10 weeks of placement, last 10 weeks of college's placement. Few weeks just before I finished my placement, they said that those who are not vaccinated, not they cannot come to placement. And I was praying to God, like, God, it's only a few weeks more. Let me finish my placement, whatever is your will for second year, you do your will. But let me finish this my first year. And God helped me to finish my first year. They changed the rule the next day. When
Wow.
God says He
Praise
will give
God.
nations for you, God changed
Yes.
the whole rules for me that I could continue on my placement, and I finished it without problems.
Hmm.
Now, second year starts with placement. I couldn't go to my placement, but it was COVID. At the beginning was great. I loved it. I finally got some sleep and some rest. Then later, it was okay. Then the third stage was depression. But what I want to say is that God is very interesting. Um, what happened for me during COVID is that now I talk a lot and I cut the story very shortly
Of
because
course.
now
Yeah.
I have
No,
to please.
but if you even want, we can come back again another time for a different
Yeah,
part if you want. But
yeah.
if you
No,
want
it's
to,
very
yeah,
short now because
yeah,
that's my life with God now started,
yeah,
right? I got baptized 2021,
yeah.
but it's COVID year, and I was supposed to get baptized, but because of COVID, I couldn't, so I have to wait 1 year. Um, yeah, I got baptized a year later than I planned.
Okay.
But what
Well,
happened throughout
maybe that was
then?
God's timing as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. What happened through in that year was that um, I we had Zoom meetings,
Mm.
and I had to lead one prayer meeting. And now I'm very comfortable with talking. But that time I had to lead my first meeting. I was involved in the choir, but never publicly speaking.
Okay.
My knees were shaking, my hands were shaking. I felt like my heart was beating so fast it's gonna jump out of my chest.
Okay.
Very hard, but I had to lead one meeting. It was a great discussion about forgiveness.
Mm.
um, People were interacting with each other. They were answering the questions. There were no awkward silence. I loved it. Started to love going to Zoom meetings. I started to love reading Bible, started to love praying to God even more.
Yeah.
Now it was more real prayers, more I prayed. God, reveal yourself in my life.
Mm.
I hear people saying testimonies. I want testimonies. I had a few, and especially the big one when we got apartment in Ireland. But I want more testimonies, and yes, I want to get closer to you. My three prayers,
Mm.
and I want to get to know who you really are. My fourth prayer that I prayed throughout COVID is that God, um, you said that you came that we can have life, that we can live it more abundantly. I want that abundant life. Give
Yeah.
it to me. And God answered prayers a lot. I love to travel a lot. So I got baptized. I couldn't get into my second year of nursing, but what is very interesting. Just before I got my um, just before I found out I didn't get into midwifery, I had a dream that I'm not gonna get into midwifery, but that I'm gonna do 1 year of nursing and I'm gonna be very happy. At the beginning, it will be very hard for me, but at the end, I would know. At the end, I would be very happy and grateful for it. Exactly like that happened.
What?
I was crying for
Tell me
weeks.
about it. Sorry. So
Um,
how did this dream manifest in, just in real life?
Yes, I didn't get into midwifery. That was just before
That's
I
the
found out
first
the
thing.
news.
Okay.
I didn't know. I had a feeling and then like I had a dream, but something the dream was so real that was telling me that's not just ordinary dream. And I was crying for weeks. I didn't get in my first choice. I mean, like literally weeks.
Okay.
It was very tough moment. I was crying for hours and hours. It was really hard. I got into nursing. I loved it.
Okay.
My first year started with really sad that I had to do nursing. At the end, I was so happy.
Mm.
When COVID came, I couldn't get into my second year. That was middle of breakdown. There was that was a time where we had 2 kilometers of
Oh,
distance
yes.
allowed
Yeah.
that you can go. You know,
Yes. Okay. I remember.
I was volunteering in ACS. We were giving food to homeless people.
All right.
I through Zoom meetings and through ACS, I started to interact more. I started to open up more with other people. I'm not afraid to talk anymore or
Mm.
interact. Um, and I was looking for a job.
Okay.
And what happened was that I was looking for a job, and because I finished 1 year nursing, I wanted to be healthcare assistant. And I said, I don't have a problem to work any job. I don't mind cleaning. I don't mind
Yeah.
working in a shop. But because I did nursing, I want to use something like that. I asked God, if it's your will, give me a job as a healthcare outside of Dublin.
Mm.
During COVID, I wanted to move out of Dublin so badly because I missed
Well,
countryside. I missed smaller places. City was fun at the beginning. It became a burden at the end.
of
I missed everything green around me. Ireland is very lovely and green country.
yeah.
I really missed that. And I missed country life.
Okay.
So I said to God, give me a job, but I was looking outside of Dublin.
Mm.
And I was looking Friday, just before the sunset, I found like an advertisement for Wicklow. Saturday night was
Mm.
ACS. I was volunteering, and one lady that I'm very close with, she asked me, "What's the plan now? You're not in college anymore. Like you can't get into second year." I took a break. That's the time in the middle of all the confusion I got baptized.
Okay.
And they asked me, "What's your plan now?" And I
Mm.
said, "I want to work as a healthcare. I'm looking for a job." Were telling me many different things. Some people were supporting me. Some people, many of them said, "You that will not happen. It's impossible. You cannot be in a healthcare at this stage." But I said, but my God is big. If he wants, I will be. I can be stubborn person for good or for bad, but I'm trying. I've been showing my stubbornness in good things. Thank God. I hope it stays that way.
Okay.
Although there are moments when I'm stubborn for wrong things, but if God wants something, if it's His will, He will open the door. I know it.
Amen.
Basically, she said that in her work in NACE, they are looking for a healthcare assistant.
Yeah.
And she said, like, do you want to join? I said, yes.
Mm.
I went there, I applied for the job, I got the job, and I'm still here. I'm still
Praise
working
God.
in that place.
Praise God.
And I have soft spot for old people. And I
Yeah.
was praying that God will help me to share the gospel. Now I have many testimonies from my work. But I want to say that God is helping me that in my work I share Bibles.
Okay.
Because they're very old people, they're very, very religious people.
Mm.
They watch the mass, they have rosaries, and if they have a prayer book, I find a way to talk to them about God. And
Amen.
I pray with my residents. One I'm studying Bible with one lady.
Oh,
I gave few
wow.
Bibles to them, and I pray with few residents. The way God works is amazing. I'm just gonna very, very briefly as the last thing. It's like this year's experience is that um, I gave one of my residents steps to Christ because the lady was all the time in books. And I was praying that God will bless it. Even if she doesn't read it, maybe family will come.
Mm.
One lady, I met her in a cooking class, plant-based cooking class, but I didn't know her mom was a resident in my home. So um, that lady, she came to visit her mom, and she saw Steps to Christ on the table. She couldn't believe it. This year, when we had a prayer meeting in our house, and she told me her mom is in a nursing home, she told me the name, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. I gave your mom Steps to Christ. And she was like, wait, you gave her Steps to Christ.
Wow.
And I said, yes, if a person is interested, if a person asks me things about God, I never force it. I say that I love to read books, and there are books that is called Steps to Christ that I love to read. And they sometimes ask me, oh, would you like, to tell me more about it or show me it? Or they ask me, I want good books. Do you have recommendations? It's an open door.
Yeah.
So I gave Resident Steps to Christ,
Mhm.
and that daughter, she said like she can't believe it.
Yes.
She was looking for Steps to Christ at that time for so long. She just heard about Adventist people. She interacted with some people, and she heard that Adventists talked about Steps to Christ book.
Yeah.
She checked every bookstore, everywhere she could find. She would think of finding it, she wouldn't find it. She started to pray with her husband that she's gonna find book Steps to Christ. She went to visit her mom, and randomly Steps to Christ was there. So when I found out, because I didn't, like that was like almost 2 years ago, I didn't see that book anymore on the table. I didn't know what happened to it. When she told me that she was praying, she got that book and she was reading it and she loved it, that brought her closer to God. When I found out what happened to the book, when she found out that I put it there, today, like, we're very close. And that resident, that she passed away very recently, but we were praying for her. I never saw a person pass away so peacefully. That lady that found Steps to Christ with her husband, they got baptized this year. We are very interested about health. I'm very interested about naturopathy and like natural medicine, how to prevent diseases and treat, and lifestyle with natural medicine without medication. There was health retreats, like we're very involved with many things together, and we go to the same church now together.
Praise
The
God.
way God works is amazing. So
Yeah.
my life right now, since I got baptized, is, of course, there's ups and downs.
Yeah.
One thing is that the last thing that I can say is that I can say there are not any problems in my life.
Yes.
Sometimes there are more problems than before, but I know that somebody greater takes care of my problems. And when I give it to God, He gives really good solution that we least expect. One illustration of what I do is that there is three girls and a father. Father told them that they can take whatever they want in the shop. And the one girl took one candy. The second girl, she took two candies in the basket. And the third girl, she asked the father, can you grab candies for me? And father grabbed the hand and he took 10 candies. And the other two girls were like, why did you ask your dad to give you candies? Why didn't you choose for yourself? And she said, because my daddy has a bigger hand.
Amen.
When we give our lives to God, He makes it something beautiful. And now I know kind of controversial, but the point is there.
Exactly. Melita, thank you so much. This is such a wonderful story and a very exciting story. I think for me, it's seeing a young woman like you so passionately about God, so passionately about serving God, and also, just to look at the whole conversion experience from being lukewarm to being on fire for Jesus. I think it's so wonderful that tonight this moment, we get to witness what the mighty hand of God at work. We can see that His hand is on your life. And you have no idea how much you've inspired a lot of young people,
Hopefully, praise God.
to really walk and, go after God. I think it will never be in vain, like you're saying. And I'm sure your life is much more fulfilled than it was before.
Yes, you get
I
the
can see the
meaning.
happiness. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
enthusiastic person.
Mm.
you know, like I got fulfillment, I got peace,
Yes.
I received a friend,
Yeah.
but you know, there's things like those who are in God, they shall want no more.
Mm.
It's not necessarily that God will kill our desires, that
Yeah.
when we are with God, you cannot desire anything.
Yeah.
No, God knows our desires, He fulfills it according to His will.
Amen.
That's like, you know, that's why I believe that there says, there shall no want.
Yeah.
I love travel. I mentioned I love traveling, and there were in Croatia, like I wouldn't be able to travel a lot.
Mm.
And I've since I started to pray that God will give me abundant life and that God will help me to travel. Last year, almost every month, and this year, like those, this year and last year, I almost every month I went somewhere, to one country. I went to so many different countries I never thought I would visit. My dream was to go to Turkey.
Oh,
And like while God fulfills your friend's dream, He fulfills yours as well.
your dream.
My
Yeah.
friend never knew that I wanted to go to Turkey. It was my dream country to go to.
Okay.
My friend wanted to get married. She got engaged. She was looking for her wedding dress. And she called me one day and she asked me, I found like, I heard that in Turkey there are good dresses. Do you want to go with me? She
Well,
didn't know my
praise
dream was to
God.
go to Turkey.
Wow. Praise
Well,
God.
God was answering her dream to get married, to find the perfect dress for the wedding. God answered my prayer that I could see the
And
place that I always wanted to see.
mm,
So God is a multitasker, and He is answering prayers uh, a lot. So the same while He is fulfilling our dream and our desires, He's also fulfilling somebody else's. So really, we as people, we struggle with comparing ourselves, which I struggled to with a lot when I was a teenager, but and jealousy as well. But I realized that in God, nobody's perfect. I cannot say that sometimes I do not wish some things that somebody else have,
yeah.
but I know that God is fulfilling my desires as well as somebody else. The world is not just about me,
Yeah.
but God does take care of me and my youth.
Mm.
Um,
Wow. That's such a powerful testimony, Melita. And it's wonderful to see where God took you from. And just I think before we even end, what advice do you have for parents of young people? And also just a message to young people,
mhm.
just in regards to what you've learned from following the worldly ways and what it's like now that you're following, that you're serving God. He's your creator after all, so you're
Yeah.
serving him faithfully. Please, if you can just, say a few words to the young people, because I believe that the young people, you are the generation that will finish the work, and
Mm.
they need to return back to God, to those that have walked away, so that they can, be impactful in His kingdom as you are being impactful.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Um, for the young people, I want to say taste and see that the Lord is good. Um, don't be, you know, like if you have a bad image about God, um, meet him for who he really is. Many of us, when we meet somebody, we have prejudices about somebody. You, I think that um, if you have prejudices, you have to leave them aside to really get to know who somebody really is, whether with people and with God. I hear that I heard always God is, like growing up a Christian, I heard many people saying God is their best friend, God is their God. And for a long time, I couldn't claim it. I knew God, I prayed. There were so many moments, like I mentioned, that I was fascinated that Jesus is gonna come again. I always believed it, but it still wasn't my personal savior. You don't expect to become best friend with somebody after 5 minutes talking with them or after just seeing them on the street.
Mm,
No, you need time to get to know them.
mm,
God understands that. He's not rushing things. He's not angry if he's not your best friend immediately. In order for somebody to become best friend, you need to meet him and spend time with them. Do that with God and make a choice for yourself.
Exactly.
No matter what happens, God is there with open arms.
Mm.
That goes for both parents and young adults. For young adults, when I was drinking, and I did many things I'm not proud of, but I know that God was there with open arms, no judging me. He is there with open arms. His arms are stretched for you too. For the parents as well, sometimes parents may feel bad that they didn't raise their kids well, that they made some bad choices. The way they acted may impacted the kid. But also ask, God's arms are also stretched for parents as well, and God will help them as well. And for the parents, in the terms of with their kids, um, be there for them, and when they, of course, God will give you wisdom when to give out to the kids, when to show kindness. You cannot be everything is fine, but um, you also can teach the child right and wrong, but you also have to let them make their choice for themselves. Because as God, like he says, like God of Abraham, God of Isaac, it might be your God as a parent, but as for your child, it's for the child, it's still the God of my father, God of my mother, but it's still not my God yet. They will have to make the decision, but even when they go far away from God, be there for them. That's the image of God in the Bible, and that's the image that your children will remember. My dad, just to illustrate that, I did get grounded many times, and I remember one day during COVID, after Zoom meeting, so good. I had such a perfect Sabbath school that morning. And for some reason, when we went, my parents and me like to go for walks. We went for a walk, we came back home, we got into a fight. I got into a fight with my dad. And I don't remember what the fight was about. Many things I don't remember. But you know what happened? I got such in a bad fight with him about stupid thing, a silly, irrelevant thing. And I was so angry. I was crying. I went to my bedroom, I slammed the door, and I sat on my bed crying. After a few minutes, my dad knocked on the door, and I was like, yes, what do you want? He was silent. He knew that something was going on with me. I love strawberries. He bought me strawberries in a bowl.
Wow.
He just went to my bedroom, put it at the table, went out, closed the door. And that image really hurt me. I realized, wow, like I don't deserve this. Nobody deserves that.
Yeah.
Like, but that's how God interacts with us. Not everything is punishment. And then I realized that strawberries are like salvation. They look good, they smell good, they taste good, they are very healthy, they
Yeah.
make you happy, they make you more beautiful.
Yeah.
That's like salvation with God. When I ate the strawberries, I ate all of them, and I wasn't ready to go out of my bedroom yet. But I calmed down. When I was ready, I went out to my dad, I said sorry, and he hugged me without blaming me. Um, the more you become like God, you're gonna show God, you're gonna show the image of God to your children. We don't remember what fights we had, but we remember how how our parents treated us and interacted with us.
Oh, they it is. Thank you so much, Belita. I don't even think I can say much after that. Even for me as a parent, I've learned a lot, and I know that our viewers out there have also grasped a lot. There's a song that I really like, and this song it's called No Matter What, and the writer of the song, went on to say, no matter where you are, you can't erase God's love.
Yeah.
Or no matter what you've done, you can't erase God's love. And he went on to say, you are not separated no matter what, and in your father's action, you could see that I'm thankful that you have parents that will always, act in such a way to show you God's love. And I believe that every parent can also, be there to show their children God's love, as you have said, that if we ask God for wisdom, He gives us wisdom. And it's a nice point as well when you say that parents shouldn't feel bad that maybe they've not done their best, but they can leave their children in God's hands and also allow them to have a choice. So, Melita, thank you so much for sharing
Praise God.
your testimony here with us. And we really do appreciate this. And I just hope that the right person will listen to this testimony and they can look through, just how God, you were going down the wrong path and then God redirected you. Not only did He save you, or He even gave you your heart's desires, like you are telling me now that you've been able to travel, it's something you've desired or you're passionate about. Sometimes people just think that God only wants, you to only serve, and He doesn't care about what we need or what our desires are. But you are a testament of God's faithfulness and, just everything you've described today. Thank you so much, and may God continue to bless you. And I hope that you continue to walk on the path that leads to Him. And maybe could you give us a prayer, pray for the teens and the young people, even mostly for those parents that are not sure how, what to do with their children that are wayward, and also for the young people that are, struggling with peer pressure, like you said, sometimes trying to fit in, just that God can give them wisdom to make the right choice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course. I'll be glad.
Okay,
Let
thank
us pray. Dear Lord, I really want to thank you for this ministry, Broken but Healed, and thank you for what a loving father and brother and friend and our Savior you are. I want to thank you for this opportunity that we could talk about what you have done in my life. I want to ask you that whoever is watching this, that you may bless them a lot. May they experience that healing, that abundant life. That takes time. It doesn't sometimes, often, well, it doesn't happen overnight, but you guide us through every stage of our lives. Please bless the parents who are going to watch this and who are watching this. May they be blessed and be a great example for their children. And all the young people that are looking at this, I'm far from perfect, but I know that you are perfect, and you worked in my life so patiently, so lovingly, so gently. And life with you is interesting, life with you is fun, and life with you is blessing. And I want to ask you that whoever is watching this may also be blessed and encouraged. And I pray that they may experience your hand in their life. Thank you so much for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Melita. And we wish you a safe journey tomorrow as you go to Serbia.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
cannot wait to hear all about it. And I'm sure I too am looking forward to visiting Croatia and Serbia. I'll
You have
definitely
to.
let you know what I think when I get to both countries.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank God. And God bless you and your ministry as well.
Oh, God bless you too. And thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.